Oh yeah, YouTube, Larry here, and it's almost here. No, not Christmas. Final Fantasy, Universes Beyond Final Fantasy, to be more specific. So yeah, you know what that means. Time to show off my pre-release deck that I drafted. So yeah, I think I drafted a pretty strong deck. So let's through it here. Plus, I've also got my other stuff that I pulled from my pre-release pack. So yeah. So I decided to go white green with this one. So yeah. So Saz Chocobo, start off it's landfall and stuff. There's all kinds of different themes to this deck. So Saz Chocobo, Community Viewers, this is actually a pretty good card. It helps you get whatever you need. Like artifact, creature, or land. Really helpful card in limited. And I got a couple of those. Ambrosia Whiteheart, again, landfall is pretty good and stuff. And of course, if you play it for its flash ability, then it's pretty good. So I got a couple of those. Then I got a full set of curls, which I don't know, in a way aren't really the best. But you can pay one and wait, tap it to tap down non-enchantment creature. Good if your opponent has like something really big in play. Then we have Torgal, a fine hound. Yeah, he's a good boy. Whenever you cast your first human creature spell, each turn that creature enters it with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each dog and or wolf you control. So yeah, if you want to build like call them dog and wolf tribal, or then Tarl's a good commander for that, especially if you're doing mono green for sure. Instant Ramen, yeah, this card is actually kind of funny and stuff. So flash, when this artifact enters, draw a card, and then of course pay 2, tap, sacrifice it, gains 3 life. It's a basic food related card, kind of like Gingerbread or whatever. Monk's Fist, I actually drafted like 4 of these, and yeah, one of them was of course foil. So yeah, I actually got to the point where I had like 3 Monk's Fists on one creature. I think I can't remember which one it was. So we got that. Chocomog, I don't know. It's just good as a creature and stuff and limited, I think. Unless you have other creatures on the battlefield at the same time as this. So dropped a couple of those. Got a couple of Hero of Lights, which were not all bad. Alan, Resplendent, and Qatar. Yeah. You do have to have other creatures on the battlefield for it to be effective. Airship Crash is just good removal and stuff, and you can also cycle it. Magic Pod. End of the game, these are actually really fun to beat up and stuff, because they got over 50,000 hit points or so like that. But yeah, when this creature dies, create a treasure token. And of course, you pay 2, tap it, exile a card from your graveyard. And of course, the flavor text really does add to the card's charm. Give me elixir. Because like in the game, you don't know how many elixirs you're gonna have to give it, so you could easily give it as few as 1 or maybe as many as 3 or 4 or something like that. I don't know, before it's finally appeased. I don't know. It depends on the RG of the game. Says Catsroy. This guy is so good. He's like doubling season on a stick almost. Except he doesn't do anything with tokens. So I mean, doubling season light on a stick. I don't know. So yeah, when he enters, of course, you get a bird or a basic land. So again, if you're building like mono green bird tribal or something like that, he could be a good commander, effective. And of course, when he attacks, and put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature. Yeah, good combination with Torgal and stuff. In fact, there's a cool combo I gotta show you afterwards here. Renoa Harley, when she enters, create Angelo, and of course, she boosts your other creatures as well, or one of your other creatures at least, until her turn for each creature you control. So that's actually a pretty powerful ability. Radia's Return. Yeah, so of course this is a mole spell. Choose one creature you control, +3/+3 until end turn, or return up to 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. I had some instances where I only had like maybe 1 or something like that. So yeah, I mean 5 mana just return 1 creature is not a good trade-off. And of course creatures you can control get +3/+3 until their turn. That probably would have been a better ability and stuff, instead of 2 target permanent cards. So temporary power boost for 5 mana. And this is one of my favorite cards, during the sealed event. Yeah. So Prerelease are. But yeah, Realm Reborn, this really suited my bacon a lot, because other permanents you control have tap and 1 mana of any color. So basically gives every one of your creatures or non-land permanents, convoke. So yeah. I mean, heck, if you put this in a Chimera deck, you could basically use a Planeswalker just half for mana. And of course, this guy, I just love this guy. During my last round, this guy was basically kind of my hero anyway. Jumbo Cactar. So of course, that was my pre-release promo. So yeah, of course, everyone knows this card. 7 mana for a creature that's a 1/7, and of course has 10,000 needles. So it has the biggest power boost in the game. And then of course, on the last cards as a basic land, the Gold Saucer, of course. I don't think I actually got around to using this ability, but yeah. Tap Iron, pay 2, tap, flip a coin. If you win the flip, create a church token. And of course, this basic ability is taps for colors. And then you pay 3, tap, sacrifice 2 artifacts, draw a card. I can see a lot of people using this for Edgar, especially since he has that 2-headed coin ability and stuff. And of course, also, heads I win, tails you lose. People probably be playing this into that. And yeah, so then of course, the rest is just 8 of each basic land. So Plains Force. So the combo that I mentioned earlier consists of Saz, Noah, and Pearl. So the idea is you want to play Torgal first. So whenever you cast your first human creature spell each turn, that creature deals and enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each dog and or wolf you control. And of course, Torgal is also a good mana dork as well. Or should I say, mana dog. Okay, and then of course, then you want to play Saz Catchword next, because of him being a human, then of course, it'll trigger Torgal, causing it to enter with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each dog and or wolf you control. And then of course, when Saz attacks, then you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature. So basically, you play Torgal first, and then you play Saz. So basically, Saz will get a +1/+1 counter, and of course, when Saz gets over his summoning sickness, then you can swing, and then you can give him even more +1/+1 counters, which is sick. And then of course, lastly, Renoa enters the battlefield, and then she creates Angelo, which, let's see here, where did I put Angelo? There he is. So Renoa creates Angelo and stuff, and then all is good and stuff. So yeah, these three are actually pretty powerful. They work really well together. But anyways, that's just a cool combo I found while I was playing and stuff. So anyways, let's go on to the stuff that I did not use. So I did have a Sid from Final Fantasy VI that I pulled in my pack, and I also pulled a Brainstorm, which of course that's just Endwalker. Yeah, I traded those two for Clive because of course I love Final Fantasy 16. I'm just finishing my second playthrough and stuff. So yeah, this is pretty cool, and of course, the extended art one is even better. Like the full art, the one that's like over $100. So there's that. And of course, I also pulled Summon GF Ifrit, which I think GF stands for Guardian of Forest Ifrit, as opposed to Girlfriend Ifrit. Yeah, from Father to Son, which of course I didn't end up using because I didn't have a lot of vehicles to use. Vincent's Limit Break foil, Scorpion Sentinel. Got a few of them actually. Trano Dark City. Man, I love these foils. I don't think they're even starting to curl. They must be using a different kind of foil. A few copies of Called Mountain Chocobo. Balam Garden Seed Academy. Mountain. Gongago Reactor Town. Charlene Nation of Scholars. Sorry. Summon Shiva. Sagan. Ultimisia the Time Sorceress. Sabotender. Full Art Zidane. Tantalus Feast. A couple of Sandworms. I think those are from Final Fantasy V. I remember the game is like a game of whack-a-mole. Fire Magic. Item Shopkeep. Bard's Bow. 2 of them. A few Gubo Gardeners. Gubu Gardeners? Yeah. Side quest, play Blitzball as well. I never actually played a lot of Blitzball, whenever I played through Final Fantasy X. I just did, partially because it's involved with the main quest and stuff. You actually have to play a game of Blitzball to progress the story. I kind of hate that, I tried to play it and it's just like, it's kind of confusing how it works. Fire Crystal from Final Fantasy 3. Grand Pulse Ochu. Queen Brawn. Ice Flan. A couple of them. Demon Wall. I actually, tried to make my own Demon Wall before this was actually spoiled and stuff. Mine worked differently, having like fresh counters and stuff like that, because in the games, especially like Final Fantasy 12, the wall moves slowly and stuff, and last thing you want to be is crushed by this big thing. Yeah, when this Demon Wall is actually one of my favorite bosses. I think I first encountered it in Final Fantasy 4 Advance. Yeah. Golbez Crystal Collector, speaking of Final Fantasy 4. Cloud of Darkness. Ignis Santa, never played Final Fantasy 15, so all I know is this guy, he cooks probably, because, his flavor text is like, I've come up with a new recipe and stuff. Baron Airship Kingdom. Stuck in Summer's Sanctum. Prima Vista. Okay, so yeah, I did have one vehicle, it's just I didn't bother using it. I could have gotten white blue vehicles if I realized it at the time, but yeah. Thief's Knife. Cornered by Black Mages. Final Days. Couple of Malboros. And then a few Q-Trip Forayers. And then, of course, I also pulled Ray. I have her in a sleeve because I thought I was going to go red-green, but then I decided to go green-white. So, yeah. And then, of course, lastly, I've got my tokens here. So, yeah. So, we got Hero, Bird, Hero, and Angelo, which, of course, on the other sides, we have Dark Star, Copy, Wizard, and Bard. So, yeah, that was my Final Fantasy Prerelease. And, yeah, I lost the first 2 rounds and stuff, then lost the first game of the 3rd round, and then I managed to come up on top going 1 and 2. So there you go. That's how my Final Fantasy Prerelease went. Anyways, I'm off to play some Commander, so catch you later.